Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our reading of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we're taking up where we left off in the emergency session from this morning, and that brings us to an unknown section since it's not marked. Where were we? Who knows? 25? Yep, 25. I marked it wrong. Sorry. Thank you. I shall not meet the king at the request of all the devotees, but I shall do so if Damodar will give me his permission. Purport. From the spiritual point of view, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to see materialistic people, especially a king who is always engaged in counting pounds, shillings, and pence. Indeed, the meeting between a sannyasi and a king is always considered abominable. A sannyasi is always subjected to public criticisms, and a small fault in his part is taken seriously by the public. People actually expect a sannyasi to preach and not take part in any social or political matters. If a sannyasi is subject to public criticism, his preaching will not be fruitful. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically wanted to avoid such criticism so that his preaching work would not be hampered. It so happened that while the Lord was talking to his disciples at that time, a devotee, Damodar Pandit, was present. This Damodar Pandit was a very faithful devotee and a staunch lover of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever there was anything that might touch or taint at the character of the Lord, Damodar Pandit would immediately point it out, not even considering the exalted position of the Lord. It is sometimes said that fools rush in where angels dare not, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out Damodar Pandit's foolishness in coming forward to criticize the Lord. This is why the Lord stated that if Damodar Pandit would give him permission, he would go to see the king. There was deep meaning in this statement, for it is a warning that Damodar should not dare criticize the Lord anymore, for it was not befitting his position as a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered the guide and spiritual master of all the devotees living with him. Damodar Pandit was one of them, and the Lord rendered Damodar Pandit a special favor by warning him to avoid criticizing him any further. A devotee or a disciple should never attempt to criticize the Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. Damodar immediately replied, "My Lord, you are the fully independent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since everything is known to you, you know what is permissible and what is not permissible. I am merely an insignificant jiva, so what power do I have to give directions to you? By your own personal choice, you will meet the king. I shall see it. The king is very much attached to you, and you are feeling affection and love towards him. Thus, I can understand that by virtue of the king's affection for you, you will touch him. Although you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are completely independent, still you are dependent on the love and affection of your devotees. That is your nature." Nityananda Prabhu then said, "Who is there in the three worlds who can ask you to see the king? Still, isn't it the nature of an attached man to give up his life if he does not attain his desired object? For instance, some of the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifice gave up their lives in the presence of their husbands for the sake of Krishna." This refers to the day Lord Sri Krishna and his cowherd boys and flocks of animals were present in the pasturing grounds near Mathura. At that time, the cowherd boys, being a little hungry, requested food, and Lord Krishna asked them to go to the Brahmanas who were engaged nearby in performing yajna, or sacrifice, and to get some food from that yajna. Being so ordered by the Lord, all the cowherd boys went to the brahmanas and asked them for food, but they were denied. After this, the cowherd boys begged food from the wives of the brahmanas. All these wives were very much devoted to Lord Krishna in spontaneous love, and as soon as they heard the request of the cowherd boys and understood that Krishna wanted some food, they immediately left the place of sacrifice. They were very much chastised for this by their husbands, and they were ready to give up their lives. It is the nature of a pure devotee to sacrifice his life for the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nityananda Prabhu, that's just interesting though. Sorry, I'm going back to that last paragraph. It says, all the cowherd boys went to the brahmanas, asking for food. They were denied. After this, they begged food from the wives of the brahmanas. All these wives were very much devoted to Lord Krishna in spontaneous love, and as soon as they heard the request, the boys understood that Krishna wanted some food. They immediately left the place sacrificed. They were very much chastised for this by their husbands. So that's not my recollection. So there must be some exception. Because what it says in the Bhagavatam is that they had, the husbands had a revelation that their wives were actually their spiritual masters, because they had the courage to go see Krishna and the wherewithal and the desire. So there must be some other commentary. Yes?
Was there some chastisement while they were trying to run and leave?
In the beginning, and one of them left her body.
Yeah, some were held back.
I see. Okay, in the beginning then. Maybe you can look it up, find that place. Not right now, but later. Nityananda Prabhu then submitted one suggestion for the Lord's consideration. There is a way, he suggested, by which you need not meet the king, but which would enable the king to continue living. If you, out of your mercy, send one of your outer garments to the king would live, hoping to see you sometime in the future. Purport: Sri Nityananda Prabhu was thus very tactfully suggesting that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would give a piece of his old clothing to the king. Even though the king was not to meet the Lord, the king would then be pacified by receiving a cloth. The king was very anxious to see the Lord, yet it was not possible for the Lord to see him. Just to resolve the situation, Nityananda Prabhu suggested that the Lord send an old piece of clothing. Thus the king would understand that the Lord was showing mercy to him. The king would then not do anything drastic like giving up his life or becoming a mendicant. The Lord said, since you are all very learned personalities, whatever you decide, I shall accept. Lord Nityananda Prabhu then obtained an external garment used by the Lord by requesting it from Govinda. Thus Nityananda Prabhu delivered the old cloth into the care of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sent it to the king. When the king received the old cloth, he began to worship it exactly as he would worship the Lord personally. This is also the conclusion of the Vedic literatures, the Vedic injunctions. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the absolute truth, everything in relation to him is on the same platform. The king had great affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and although he did not see the Lord, he had nonetheless already attained the conclusion of devotional service. Immediately upon receiving the cloth from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the king began to worship it, accepting it as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord's clothing, bedding, slippers, and everything required as an ordinary necessity are all transformations of Shesha, Vishnu, the expansion of Sri Baladev. Thus the cloth and other paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are but other forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything connected to the Lord is worshipable. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs us that just as Krishna is worshipable, Krishna's place, Vrindavan, is also worshipable. And as Vrindavan is worshipable, similarly the paraphernalia in Vrindavan, the trees, roads, river, everything is worshipable. A pure devotee thus sings, Jai Jai Vrindavan Vasi Jata Jan. All glories to the residents of Vrindavan. If a devotee has a staunch devotional attitude, all these conclusions will be awakened or revealed within the heart. Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tathagaro Tasyaite Katitahyata Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Thus, following in the footsteps of Maharaj Prataparudra and other devotees, we should learn to worship everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is referred to by Lord Shiva as Tadhyanam. In the Padma Purana it is said, Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmat parataram tevi tadhyanam samarchanam. O Devi, the most exalted system of worship is the worship of Lord Vishnu. Greater than that is the worship of Tadiya, or anything belonging to Vishnu. Sri Vishnu is Sakchidananda Vigraha, similarly the most confidential servant of Krishna, the spiritual master, and all devotees of Vishnu are Tadiya. The Sakchidananda Vigraha, Guru, Vaishnavas, and things used by them must be considered Tadiya, and without a doubt worshipable by all living beings. After returning from his service in South India, Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to remain with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to stay with the Lord, the king immediately gave him permission with great satisfaction. As for the king himself, he began to solicit Ramananda Roy to make a meeting arrangement. The king told Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful to you. Therefore, please solicit my meeting with him without fail. The king and Ramananda Roy returned together to Jagannath Kshetra Puri, and Sri Ramananda Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At that time, Ramananda Roy informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the ecstatic love of the king. Indeed, as soon as there was some opportunity, he repeatedly informed the Lord about the king. Sri Ramananda Roy was indeed a diplomatic minister for the king. His general behavior was very expert, and simply by describing the king's love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gradually softened the Lord's mind. Purport: a diplomat in the material world knows how to deal with people, especially in political affairs. Some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Ramananda Roy, Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, were government officers and had a background of very opulent household life. Consequently, they knew how to deal with people. In many instances, we have seen the diplomacy of Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Ramananda Roy employed in the service of the Lord. When Raghunath Das Goswami's father and uncle were to be arrested by government officials, Raghunath Das Goswami hid them and personally met the government officers and settled the affair diplomatically. This is but one instance. Similarly, Sanatana Goswami, after resigning his ministership, was thrown in jail, and he bribed the attendant of the jail so that he could leave the clutches of the Nawab and live with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we see Ramananda Roy, a most confidential devotee of the Lord, diplomatically soften the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, despite the fact that the Lord definitely decided not to meet the king. The diplomacy of Ramananda Roy and entreaties of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all the other great devotees succeeded. The conclusion is that diplomacy used for the service of the Lord is a form of devotional service. Maharaj Prataparuja, in great anxiety, could not endure not seeing the Lord. Therefore, Sri Ramananda Roy, by his diplomacy, arranged a meeting with the Lord for the king. Sri Ramananda Roy frankly requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please show your lotus feet to the king at least once. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my dear Ramananda, you should make this request after duly considering whether it is befitting for a sannyasi to meet a king. If a mendicant meets a king, this world and the next world are both destroyed for the mendicant. Indeed, what is there to say of the next world? In this world, people will joke if a sannyasi meets a king. Ramananda Roy replied, my lord, you are the supreme independent personality. You have nothing to fear from anyone because you are not dependent on anyone. When Ramananda Roy addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected, saying, I am not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary human being. Therefore, I must fear public opinion in three ways, with my body, mind, and words. As soon as the general public finds a little fault in the behavior of a sannyasi, they advertise it like wildfire. A black spot of ink cannot be hidden on a white cloth. It is always very prominent. Some things never change. Ramananda Roy replied, my dear Lord, you have delivered so many sinful people. This King Prataparuja, the king of Orissa, is actually a servitor of the Lord and your devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, there may be much milk in a big pot, but if it is contaminated by a drop of liquor, it is untouchable. The king certainly possesses all good qualities, but simply by taking up the name king, he has infected everything. But if you are still eager for the king to meet with me, please first bring his son to meet me. It is indicated in the revealed scripture that the son represents the father. Therefore, the son's meeting with me would be just as good as the king's meeting with me. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:78-36, it is said, Atma vai putra utpana iti vedanushashanam. The Vedas enjoin that one is born as his own son. The son is non-different from the father, and this is admitted in every revealed scripture. In Christian theology, it is believed that Christ, the Son of God, is also God, or in other words, that they are identical. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and following the Lord's orders, brought the king's son to see him. And we'll take a couple of reflections or questions. Yes, I see a hand, but I see no form behind it. An unembodied hand. Go ahead, Mukharben, and then somebody's behind you too.
Maharaj, there was one very nice section of the Tadiya worship of how King was knowing the Shastric conclusion and he was worshipping the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's the cloth that he has sent. I was wondering that if you can share that some of the article that you are worshipping that you have received of
a dhoti. I got a dhoti, Prabhupada's dhoti. I won it in a marathon in St. Louis, Missouri, because the marathon was who stayed out the most hours. And another devotee won, and I came in second, but then the other devotee came and sheepishly admitted to the temple president that he had got a hotel room and just slept all day long. So the temple president came in and said, "Here, you won. You were next in line." So it's a dhoti.
How long was it?
Huh?
How long was that?
For what? To stay out? I have no idea. We used to stay out all day. Then, I don't know, we have a few little things people gave us. At Kurta, we got as a wedding present, you know Sudama, Prabhupada's servant, Sudama, his brother, who's also a devotee, he had that. I guess he got it from Sudama. He gave it one of Prabhupada's kurtas. We should probably give them all to the museum soon. Stuff like that. Any other things?
Hare Krishna. I was appreciating how all of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers and associates all have unique skills that they're known for and acknowledged for. For example, there was Damodar Pandit, who was known for who always gave Mahaprabhu, I think it was said that he always prevented anything from harmful or bad from touching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then there's also Ramananda Rai, who was able to handle things very diplomatically. So it's nice they all had their own unique flavors, but the thing that united all of them was their devotion to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the same way that devotees can have their own skills, their own talents, but the most important thing is to have that devotion, that appreciation, and use it in Krishna and Mahaprabhu's service.
Nice. Good point. Nanda, I think.
Hare Krishna. I was noting how Lord Chaitanya was very adamantly opposed, initially, obviously, to meet the king on the pretext of the perception of people feeling that if he met the king, then his reputation would be tainted and his preaching would be hampered. However, we also see that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and obviously in Srila Prabhupada, and following Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's footsteps, was very interested in meeting with leading people, especially Srila Prabhupada. He was very interested. He was always writing to Mahatma Gandhi, President Nixon, this one, the Pope. Srila Prabhupada wrote to the Pope also, because Srila Prabhupada's motivation was that if they would become favorable to Krishna consciousness, their influence would help spread the Krishna consciousness movement. So I was just noticing the difference, but still the
Well, how do you account for the difference?
I was hoping you would explain that.
Well, the first thing came into my mind was a different era. And at the time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking sannyas, his main point was to maintain that, because people were very aware of sannyasis being not connected with the world, and if anything contradicted that, that would ruin his reputation. And things seemingly changed over time. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was quite a revolutionary in that point, that he got the Gaudiya Vaishnavas back into taking the Tridandi sannyas, and then he also had them, kind of like when I first joined, they shaved my head and then they gave me a wig. I couldn't believe it. Shaved my head and they walked me down the street and said, "Here, try one of these on." I said, "What the heck is going on?" And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave sannyas, but then they dressed up in all kinds of, modern clothes and everything. He sort of set the stage for that. Different era. Thanks, Nanda. And then we have Mahendra Prabhu, and then Vamshuli. Oh, we have Navina.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Could you show us where is the line between being diplomatic and using diplomacy for the service of the Lord?
You really have to be self-searching to make sure that what your motive is. Japa is a good time to look at your motive and just see, am I actually sincere and self-searching? Because just like, let's say somebody writes you something or says something to you, and you perceive a molecule of anger. Rudra, the Rudra energy. Just say you perceive a molecule of that when you receive some. It might be translated into something like, "How dare they?" Then don't answer until you calm down. That's why letters were good, because you'd write it in anger, and the next day, because you couldn't find a postal stamp, it's like, what was I thinking? Nowadays people just push the button. And in a similar way, when we're making decisions, diplomatic or otherwise, diplomacy has has a place, but we have to investigate, am I self-motivated? Is there something in it for me, for my fame, or because I want to have the experience of dominating another person? If that's there, then it's going to be contaminated. So be careful. I'm not saying to you, be careful. You're already careful. I'm just saying a person like me should be careful.
Oh, thank you. And how react or not react when one is on the receiving end of diplomacy?
Well, it depends what kind it is. But like Krishna recommends in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he said that we should be careful not to become our enemy's enemy, and in general not take things personally when that kind of happens. Like when Peter Burwash was ripped off, good term, he paid it for his life membership. He was a businessman in Hawaii, and he paid for his membership, and it just turned out the devotee he paid it to was on his way out the door. So he just took his $2,000 or whatever it was, which was a lot of money back then, and left. And when he found out, he was incensed, and Prabhupada happened to be there, so Prabhupada was talking to him regularly, and so he went and complained to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, don't be angry with the instrument of your karma. It wasn't that he just wrote the whole thing off, he was rectified, but Prabhupada gave him that philosophical instruction that he kept his whole life. And so that was worth more than $2,000. Worth more than $2,000. That's right. It's $2,000 instruction. Prabhu?
Could you elaborate more about, again, another fine line between caring about your reputation and not be concerned about what Krishna advises also in the 12th chapter, in many other places, about honor and dishonor? Advanced spiritualists should not be concerned at all.
Well, we shouldn't do anything to compromise our reputation, because that's currency. It's the main currency in a spiritual volunteer organization, because it goes to trust. If people trust you, then the door's wide open. But if you lose the trust because of doing something foolish, then you should be really reticent and try to win the trust back. And if somebody defames you unnecessarily, you can follow Krishna's footsteps. He didn't like it when he was accused of, who accused him of taking the Shamataka jewel. Satyajit said, Krishna probably took it because he was envious in the first place. But Krishna went out to clear his name, did a forensic study and went through. He was methodical but dispassionate, because good to have a paper trail that you did your due diligence, but you didn't try to do anything vindictive. You just collected the information and said, here are the facts that I have gathered, and so that you have them to present, so others who are going to make a judgment can have proper information. But just don't take it too far. Dhruva Maharaj, when he went up after Uttama was killed by Yaksha, he went to do his duty, but he went a little too far. So we have to make sure that, again, that Rudra energy doesn't come in, and that's why I say methodical but dispassionate. Try to protect your reputation when it's possible, but the other instruction that I've taken to heart was when Prithu Maharaj became angry with Indra because Indra stole the horse 3 times, and then he got so angry he wanted to kill him, and the priest there said, you can't kill him, we'll kill him. And then Brahma came down and said, nobody kill anybody, he's Indra. And then he preached to Prithu Maharaj, did Brahma, and he said, when these providential events come in your life, then you should step back. Don't try to fix all the details, because you enter deeper and deeper into anxiety because of it. So it's kind of a fine line. You do your due diligence, but then let it go. You did your whatever you could do, and then don't dwell on it. Prabhu. We'll just take 3 more, and then we got to start reading
I was
again.
also just thinking in this regard that there's doing our due diligence to protect ourselves, but then also an internal search. I remember hearing from you that Radhanath Maharaj once said that if you take credit for something which you didn't do, you may end up being blamed for something that you didn't do. So we can also use the environment to introspect and see how can I reform myself moving forward, to be careful to not unnecessarily take credit or take credit for the circumstances which arise in my life which I am not really responsible for.
Yeah. Unless you take the Judd Bart route, then you just don't care about anything. Okay. 2 more and we're out.
I just have a follow-up from the point about the wives of the Brahmanas.
Please.
So from that chapter, I think it's the 22nd or 23rd chapter of the 10th canto, it says, although their husbands, brothers, sons, and other relatives tried to forbid them from going, their hope of seeing Krishna, cultivated by extensive hearing of his transcendental qualities, won out. And then along the river Yamuna, within a garden decorated with buds of Ashoka trees, they caught sight of him strolling along in the company of the cowherd boys and his elder brother Balaram. And Srila Prabhupada says in the 25th purport, to the verse 25, he says, the word upapanam indicates that although these ladies had rejected their husbands' orders, their behavior was not at all inappropriate, since their husbands had obviously tried to obstruct their loving service to Lord Krishna.
Thank you very much. And the last one is Vamshuli Prabhu, and then we're going back to the reading.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. My question is related to Tadiya. I've heard that we should not take anything outside Vraja, but then sometimes I have a desire to take some seeds from Vraja like Tulsi or Tamal, so that someday maybe we can cultivate them in the other temples or areas outside Vraja. How to understand what is acceptable in these matters?
Well, I don't know that injunction about not taking seeds out. I'd like to see where it's from. But it is pretty ecstatic when you get... Somebody brought me some plumerias from Chankazi, and they're growing quite luxuriantly. And it's always so nice to offer to the deities because they're from Mayapur. And there's also the tamarind trees that grew because I was with Jananivas Prabhu in, what's that place called? Ambikakalna, and we were just standing under that tree that Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya danced under, and there were pods all over the place because it's a prolific tree. And he said, go ahead, take one. So I picked it up and he goes, eat it. Okay. So I cracked it open and there's that gooey tamarind inside and I ate it. And then 2 seeds came out. I washed everything, my hands and the seeds in the pump, and I just thought, throw them in my pocket. And they just happened to end up back in another state, which will go unnamed. And and during the pandemic, I was sitting around thinking like, what should I do now? And I said, let's grow those tamarind trees. So I went through a process to germinate them. I read online, and then I put them in the pots. And they didn't come up, and they didn't come up, and I thought, well, what do you expect? And then they came up. And now they're growing, and they're really, it's amazing because they're descendants of that tree from the Dham. So I hope there is no actual Shastric injunction. And if there is, I plead ignorance. Okay, let's continue. We're reading from 12th chapter, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. We're up to 57. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and following the Lord's orders, brought the king's son to see him. The prince, just entering upon his youth, was very beautiful. He was blackish in complexion and had large lotus eyes. The prince was dressed in yellow cloth, and there were jeweled ornaments decorating his body. Therefore, anyone who saw him would remember Lord Krishna. Seeing the boy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately remembered Krishna. Meeting the boy in ecstatic love, the Lord began to speak. Here is a great devotee, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Upon seeing him, everyone can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda. In his Anubhashya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that a materialist mistakenly accepts the body and mind as the source of material enjoyment. In other words, a materialist accepts the bodily conception of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not regard the son of Maharaj Prataparudra with the idea that he was a materialist, being the son of a materialist. Nor did he consider himself the enjoyer. Mayavadi philosophers make a great mistake by assuming that the Satchit Ananda Vigraha, the transcendental form of the Lord, is like a material body. However, there is no material contamination in transcendence, nor is there any possibility of imagining a spirituality in matter. One cannot accept matter as spirit, as indicated by the technical words Bhauma Ijadi. Materialistic Mayavadis imagine the form of God in matter, although according to their imagination, God is unlimitedly formless. This is simply mental speculation. Even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he placed himself in the position of a gopi. He also accepted the king's son directly as the son of Maharaj Nanda, Rajendra Nandana Hari. This is perfect vision according to the direction of the Vedic culture, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Pandita Samadarshina. Such acceptance of the absolute truth, according to Vaishnava philosophy, is explained in both the Mundaka Upanishad and the Karta Upanishad in the following words. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medaya na bahuna shrutena yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vravinute tandum swam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. The living entity is entangled in material existence due to his lack of such spiritual vision. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung in his Kalyana Kalpataru, Samsari Asya Prakriti Bhajiya Purusha Abhimani Mari. When the living entity comes to the material world, he thinks himself the enjoyer. Thus he becomes more and more entangled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I have become very much obligated just by seeing this boy. After saying this, the Lord again embraced the prince. As soon as the prince was touched by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, symptoms of ecstatic love immediately manifested themselves in his body. These symptoms included perspiration, trembling, tears, being stunned, and jubilation. The boy began to cry and dance, and he chanted, Krishna, Krishna. Upon seeing his bodily symptoms and his chanting and dancing, all the devotees praised him for his great spiritual fortune. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calmed the youth and ordered him to come there daily to meet him. Ramananda Roy and the boy then departed from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Ramananda took him back to the king's palace. The king was very happy when he heard of his son's activities. Just by embracing his son, the king was filled with ecstatic love, just as if he had touched Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly. From then on, the fortunate prince was one of the most intimate devotees of the Lord. In this regard, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati writes, Yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simply glanced at someone for a moment, that person immediately turned into one of the most confidential devotees of the Lord. The prince came to see the Lord for the first time, but by the Lord's mercy the boy immediately became a topmost devotee. This was not in theory, but in practice. We cannot apply the Nagna Makrita Nyaya formula. This states that if one's mother was naked in her childhood, she should continue to remain naked, even though she has become the mother of so many children. If a person is actually blessed by the mercy of the Lord, he can immediately become a topmost devotee of the Lord. The logic of Nagna Matrika states that if a person is not elevated on such and such a date, he cannot become an exalted devotee overnight, as it were. This particular instance offers evidence to contradict that theory. On the previous day, the boy was simply an ordinary prince, and the next day he was counted as one of the topmost devotees of the Lord. This was all made possible by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful, and almighty, and he can act as he likes. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu acted in the society of his pure devotees, performing his pastimes and spreading the Sankirtan movement. Some of the prominent devotees like Advaitacharya used to invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take his meals at their homes. The Lord accepted such invitations accompanied by his devotees. In this way, the Lord passed some of his days in great jubilation. Then the car festival of Lord Jagannath approached. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first of all called for Kashi Mishra, then for the superintendent of the temple, then for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When these three people came before the Lord, he begged them for permission to wash the temple known as Gundicha. Purport: the Gundicha temple is situated 2 miles northeast of the Jagannath temple. At the time of the Rath Yatra festival, Lord Jagannath goes to the Gundicha temple from his original temple and stays there for 1 week. After 1 week, he returns to his original temple. It is understood by hearsay that the wife of Indradumna, the king who established the Jagannath temple, was known as Gundicha. There is also mention of the name of the Gundicha temple in authoritative scripture. The area of the Gundicha temple is estimated to be 288 cubits by 215 cubits. A cubit is about 1.5 feet. So how does that compare to New Dwarka or something like that? Nobody has ChatGPT. The main temple inside is about 36 cubits by 30 cubits, and the Kirtan hall is 32 cubits by 30 cubits. And here's pictures. We have a picture of the big crowds at Rath Yatra. We have a picture of the San Francisco Rath Yatra with big crowds. Circa 1974. Can you see? Here's Lord Chaitanya cleansing the temple. Sweeping the road, Lord Chaitanya dancing. Lord Prataparuja massaging the lotus feet of the Lord. Spoiler alert. We have elephants trying to push the cart. We have all the devotees playing in the Indradumna lake. Oh, there's so many pictures. It's amazing. Each one of them was a full-blown oil painting done by the devotees who started off in Boston in a dank basement, and they complained to Prabhupada. They said, number one, we're not very good artists, and number two, we don't know what Krishna looks like, so... And Prabhupada said, stay in front of the canvas and pray. And of course they consulted him also. Taking up at 74, upon hearing the Lord's request for permission to wash the Gundicha temple, the Padicha, the superintendent of the temple, said, my dear sir, we are all your servants. Whatever you desire is our duty to perform. The king gave a special order for me to do without delay whatever your lordship orders. My dear Lord, washing the temple is not service befitting you. Nonetheless, if you wish to do so, it is to be accepted as one of your pastimes. To wash the temple, you need many water pots and brooms. Therefore, order me. I can immediately bring all these things to you. As soon as the superintendent understood the desire of the Lord, he immediately delivered 100 new water pots and 100 brooms for sweeping the temple. The next day, early in the morning, the Lord took his personal associates with him, and with his own hands smeared sandalwood pulp on their bodies. He gave each devotee a broom with his own hand, and taking all of them personally with him, the Lord went to Gundicha. In this way, the Lord and his associates went to cleanse the Gundicha temple. At first, they cleansed the temple with the brooms. The Lord cleansed everything inside the temple very nicely, including the ceiling. He then took up the sitting place, Simhasana, cleansed it, and again put it in its original place. Thus the Lord and his companions cleansed and swept all the temple buildings, big and small, and finally cleansed the area between the temple and the kirtan hall. Indeed, hundreds of devotees were engaged in cleansing all around the temple, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally carrying out the operation just to instruct others. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the temple in great jubilation, chanting the holy name of the Lord Krishna all the time. Similarly, all the devotees were also chanting and at the same time performing their respective duties. The entire beautiful body of the Lord was covered with dust and dirt. In this way it became transcendently beautiful. At times when cleansing the temple, the Lord shed tears, and in some places he even cleansed with those tears. After this, the place where the deity's food was kept, Bhogamandira, was cleansed. Then the yard was cleansed, and then all the residential quarters, one after another. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu collected all the straw, dust, and grains of sand in one place, he gathered it all in his cloth and threw it outside. Following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees in great jubilation began to gather straws and dust with their own cloths and throw them outside the temple. The Lord then told the devotees, I can tell how much you have labored and how well you have cleansed the temple simply by seeing all the straw and dust you have collected outside. Even though all the devotees collected dirt in one place, the dirt collected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was much greater. After the inside of the temple was cleansed, the Lord again allotted areas for the devotees to cleanse. The Lord then ordered everyone to cleanse the inside of the temple very perfectly by taking finer dust, straws and grains of sand and throwing them outside. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas cleansed the temple for the second time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see the cleansing work. While the temple was being swept, about 100 men stood ready with filled water pots, and they simply awaited the Lord's order to throw the water from them. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called for the water, all the men immediately brought the 100 water pots, which were completely filled, and delivered them before the Lord. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first washed the main temple, and then thoroughly washed the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the sitting places, Singhasana, and everything else within the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself and his devotees began to throw water onto the ceiling. When this water fell, it washed the walls and floor. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to wash the sitting place of Lord Jagannath with his own hands, and all the devotees began to bring water to the Lord. All the devotees within the temple began to wash. Each one had a broom in his hand, and in this way they cleansed the temple of the Lord. Someone brought water to pour into the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and someone poured water on his lotus feet. The water that fell from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drunk by someone who hid himself. Someone else begged for that water, and another person was giving that water in charity. After the room was washed, the water was let out through an outlet, and it then flowed and filled the yard outside. The Lord mopped the rooms with his own clothes, and he polished the throne with them also. In this way all the rooms were cleansed with 100 water pots. After the rooms had been cleansed, the minds of the devotees were as clean as the rooms. When the temple was cleansed, it was purified, cool and pleasing, just as if the Lord's own pure mind had appeared. Since hundreds of men were engaged in bringing water from the lake, there was no place to stand on the banks. Consequently, someone began to draw water from a well. Hundreds of devotees brought water in the pots, and hundreds took the empty pots away to fill them up again. With the exception of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaitacharya, Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Bharati, and Paramananda Puri, everyone was engaged in filling the water pots and bringing them there. Many of the water pots were broken when people collided with one another, and hundreds of men had to bring new water pots to fill. Some people were filling the pots and others were washing the rooms, but everyone was engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and Hari. One person begged for a water pot by chanting the holy names Krishna, Krishna, and another delivered the pot while chanting Krishna. Whenever anyone had to speak, he did so by uttering the holy name of Krishna. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Consequently, the holy name of Krishna became an indication for everyone who wanted something. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was vibrating the holy name of Krishna in ecstatic love, he himself was performing the work of hundreds of men. It appeared as though Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cleansing and washing with 100 hands. He approached every devotee just to teach him how to work. When he saw someone doing nicely, the Lord praised him, but if he saw that someone was not working to his satisfaction, he immediately chastised that person, not bearing him any grudge. The Lord would say, "You have done well. Please teach this to others, so that they may act in the same way." As soon as they heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say this, everyone became ashamed. Thus the devotees began to work with great attention. They washed the Jagamohan area, and then the place where food was kept. All other places were also washed. In this way, the meeting place was washed, the entire yard, the raised sitting places, the kitchen, and every other room. Thus, all places around the temple were thoroughly washed within and without. After everything was thoroughly washed, a Vaishnava from Bengal, who was very intelligent and simple, came and poured water on the lotus feet of the Lord. The Gaudiya Vaishnava then took that water and drank it himself. Seeing that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt a little unhappy and was also outwardly angry. Although the Lord was certainly satisfied with him, he became angry externally in order to establish the etiquette of religious principles. The Lord then called for Swarup Damodar and told him, "Just see the behavior of your Bengali Vaishnava. This person from Bengal has washed my feet within the temple of the personality of Godhead. Not only that, he has drunk the water himself. I now do not know what my destination is because of this offense. Indeed, your Bengali Vaishnav has greatly implicated me. It is significant that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Swarup Damodar Goswami that the Bengali Vaishnav was your Gaudiya Vaishnav. This means that all Gaudiya Vaishnavas who are followers of the Chaitanya cult are subordinate to Swarup Damodar Goswami. The Parampara system is very strictly observed by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal secretary was Swarup Damodar Goswami. The next group of devotees was the 6 Goswamis, then Kaviraj Goswami. It is necessary to observe the Parampara system of the Chaitanya cult. There are many offenses one can commit while serving the Lord, and these are described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Harivilas, and other books. According to the rules and regulations, no one should accept obeisances in the temple of the Lord before the deity. Nor is it proper for a devotee to offer obeisances and touch the feet of the spiritual master before the deity. This is considered an offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it was not actually offensive to wash his lotus feet in the temple. However, because he was playing the part of an acharya, the Lord considered himself an ordinary human being. He also wanted to give instructions to ordinary human beings. The point is that even though one plays the part of a spiritual master, he should not accept obeisances or permit a disciple to wash his feet before the deity. This is a matter of etiquette. At this point, Swarup Damodar Goswami caught the Gaudiya Vaishnava by the neck and, giving him a little push, ejected him from the Gundicha Puri temple and made him stay outside. After Swarup Damodar Goswami returned within the temple, he requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excuse that innocent person. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. He then asked all of the devotees to sit down in 2 lines on both sides. The Lord then personally sat down in the middle and picked up all kinds of straw, grains, and sand and dirty things. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was picking up the straws and grains of sand, he said, I shall gather everyone's collection, and I shall ask whoever has collected less than all the others to pay a fine of sweet cakes and sweet rice. In this way, all the quarters of the Gundicha temple were completely cleansed and cleared. All quarters were cool and spotless, like one's cleansed and pacified mind. When the water from the different rooms was finally let out through the halls, it appeared as if new rivers were rushing out to meet the waters of the ocean. And now we'll take a short break and come back here at 1:45. Om Tat Sat.